Okay, we are joined today then by the very special Mr. Joe Thambu Sensei, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. This is someone that I've trained with before. I was a dojo say for a month in Australia within it, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit as the interview progresses. We're not going to go too much into your background today, Sensei, if that's all right, because I think people can read about that, and it's a waste of having you here and asking you questions. But if you could give me like a little bit of a, just a short bio, maybe to save me talking. Go for it.
Awesome. Good evening, good morning, whatever it is to everyone. I have been doing Aikido since the age of 11, and I've always been influenced by the speed and agility of Shioda Gozo Kancho, and I think I perhaps model my Aikido after that. I'm also a very small person. Dan's about the only person I know who's shorter than me. I've also done security work and taught security personnel, law enforcement, etc., etc. I guess, yeah, like you, if you want to know more about me, just read about it.
Exactly.
Let's not dwell on that.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So you've had a really rich and varied history, I'd say, of the martial arts, and it's good. From starting in Malaysia with your uncle, Thambu Raja, and being exposed at that point. You got to meet some amazing people, yeah, during that time. So people like Don Draeger.
Yes.
What was it like to just be in that environment day to day?
Having someone like Don Draeger there he wasn't there all the time. He was there usually in the northern summer. He'd go to Malaysia and use my uncle's dojo as a base to do research for his book, and he wrote a lot about martial arts in Southeast Asia at that time.
Okay.
He also brought with him a lot of top flight martial artists, and the reason I actually started is because one year he brought down his teacher, Shimizu Sensei, and a few other really top flight martial artists, and I looked at them, and at the tender age of 11 I said, that's what I want to be. So, I think to my regret, I wasn't old enough to fully appreciate who and what Draeger Sensei was. So I know snippets, I listened to certain things, but really, as a kid, you want everything hard and fast, and you don't bother to take the time to listen as much as I should have.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Okay, good. Obviously, you're now based in Australia, in Melbourne. What made the decision then to move from Malaysia to Australia? How did that come about?
Well, more by accident than anything else. When I'd finished what was then O levels, my uncle and my father said to me, if you do well, we'll send you to Japan, which is what I always wanted to do. Okay. So I did well, much to my surprise. And my father said, I'm traveling this year, so maybe next year. And my uncle said, there's some problems in Japan, so maybe next year. And I thought, there's another broken promise. I'm never going to go.
Sure.
I had a friend who was applying to come out to Australia to study. So I just went off to the Australian High Commission, got the papers, came back, got my dad to sign it. He looked at my mum, what's this for? And I said, I'm going to Australia. And he signed the papers. That was it.
And done. Perfect. Okay, yeah. I think I read that you trained in Aikido when you were there because you couldn't find anything Yoshinkan kind of related.
Yes.
But it didn't suit you.
No.
In what way?
No disrespect to Aikido, but I think we always compare what we do to the original. And for me, the original was what my uncle was teaching, which was early style Yoshinkan Aikido. It didn't have so many turns and twists as Aikido, and I don't want to put Aikido down, but I wasn't appreciative enough of the style, and I thought perhaps wrongly, but I thought it was too light, for want of a better word.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, we'll get into that I think in a little bit, but just keeping then in terms of your history and your background. I'd say one of the most interesting parts of your career so far was your 5th Dan test in 1993. And I think Phil Ayres has already kind of taught you a little bit about this. But if you could just kind of go through what it was like being tested by Shioda Kancho for your 5th Dan, which is kind of the last test that most that most people do officially.
You know, that test went for 16, 17 minutes.
Yeah.
And to this day, Shioda Sensei says it's one of the longest tests in Yoshinkan history. Okay, so really it's not long in that sense of the word, but the amount of scrutiny and pressure that's put on you when you can have the teachers looking at you from this close, and if you flinch, you fail. So there was a lot of pressure there, and that pressure, two moves into the test, you're already sweating.
Sure. Yeah.
From the immense pressure, and you had to focus in spite of the pressure. You had to suck it up and just do it. And all of us did it back then. Not just me. All of us did it. And you knew what to expect, but it was still really, really nerve-wracking. People would do a couple of basic movements and they'd be like this already. Yeah. And part of the test is dealing with that pressure cooker type situation.
Sure. The adrenaline and
Yep. And dealing with it. And if you make a mistake, getting over it and just moving past that mistake straight away. You kick yourself in the back of the head later.
Okay, you said it lasted 16 minutes, yeah? And that was one of the longest in Yoshinkan Aikido.
Yeah.
For many other martial arts, comparatively, that's the blink of an eye. If you think of, I don't know, kickboxing, boxing, grading, karate, things like that, they can last for days sometimes in terms of grading, like 8-hour days, running through katas, sparring, forms, self-defense side, etc. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think the Yoshinkan testing process should be different? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? Does it do what it should?
Okay, what's the criteria of a test?
Well, it's to see your progression from previous tests.
Is it for the practitioner? Sorry?
It's to see your progression.
Okay, hold on. Who? Is it for the practitioner? Is it for the audience? Or is it for the teacher to see how good you are?
The teacher and the participant, I'd say.
Yeah, okay, and the teacher can see it. A good teacher can see it. They say, Kancho Sensei, you took Kamai and you did the first basic movement. He pretty much decided what level you should be.
Yeah.
So I think if we look at that, firstly, then for me, it's about the teacher. You're there to prove yourself to the teacher, right? Now, in Kyokushin Karate, and they don't come any harder than that, they say if you want to do a test of a high or a dan test, you have to practice 4 or 6 months before.
Yeah.
In Yoshinkan Aikido, they say if you have to practice more than 2 weeks before a test, you're no good. You're not ready. Now, people look at that as opposing. I see them as the same. If you want to practice, you have to practice 4 to 6 months. And then if in the last 2 weeks, it's not good enough to finesse, you're not ready. And in Yoshinkan Aikido, the test, honestly, is in the training, as you all know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I don't miss testing. That was my last test in '93. I don't miss testing, but I do miss the preparation for a test. I do miss that focus, being pushed, and I really do miss that.
Yeah. Do you think you need the testing then still? Do you think it's right that at 5th Dan you no longer test, or do you think you should continue testing throughout, even as you reach the higher grades?
Okay, now as you know, I'm no longer with the Yoshinkan.
Yeah.
I have my own group, and everyone's different. Now, for me, up until 5th Dan, or in the Shudokan, up until 5th Dan, it's what the art's done for you, hence the testing. To see your progression, see where the art's taken you as a person.
Sure.
And after 5th Dan, it's what you've done for the art, i.e., what's your contribution been? Have you helped promote the art? Have you helped promote other people? Have you taught people? So I think there's a transition from 5th Dan onwards.
Sure.
What you've done. So my teachers look at me and they say, okay, let's see what Joe's done. He's produced X number of 4th dans, 5th dans, whatever. Okay, fine. Time for him to get his next downgrade.
Okay.
It's not about me anymore. It's about what I can do for the art.
Perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely. How do you continue with that passion and enthusiasm then? Because if you're no longer tested at 5th Dan, going up to 6th Dan, 7th Dan, etc., is there any possibility of it becoming kind of an old boys network where people get overlooked for gradings, perhaps people get put in for gradings perhaps they shouldn't do, and then people that should be at a certain level may be overlooked because they're not as close with the sensei, with the Shihan, etc. So they get kind of overlooked perhaps. And I think you kind of alluded to this with your interview with Darren Friend Sensei.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts on that? And if people do get overlooked, and is it right? Should we stop it? Is it just part of life? Is it a thing?
I think I agree with everything you said. Everything. Okay. But I don't think martial arts has come up with a better solution. So as flawed as it is, I think it's a good system. I spoke to one of my teachers once, and he has his own organization now. Oh, we got the same beard.
Cheers.
So, and I asked him about in his organization what the criteria was for a 6th Dan, and he said that when the time was right, he would decide if someone gets a 6th Dan, and if the time was right and that person still hadn't got a 6th Dan, they could request a test.
Right. Okay.
So there's ways around it. There's alternatives. I think in most martial arts systems, you either test or you have someone above you who recommends you and helps you along the way to a certain level. Yeah. And everyone's different. Every organization's different. And the problem is there's no one size that fits all. There's no, then the best of us were taught good martial arts. Yeah. The best of us. Very few of us were taught how to teach. Yeah. None of us were taught how to run a dojo or run an organization.
Yeah.
So it's trial and error, and you have to find what works for you. And if you can't, you shouldn't be that high up in an organization.
True. Yeah.
Now I won't do what works for someone else. I will use what other people have done and make it work for me. And I will be happy to change my mind at some point in time. But I always do it in consultation with the seniors in my organization, but also with friends like Darren Friend Sensei, John Marshall Sensei, Robert Master Sensei. I discuss it with them. We're not in the same organization, but we bounce ideas off each other. Then I figure out what's best for me. Yeah. If you're not willing to put your hand up, then if you can't handle the heat in the kitchen, get out the kitchen.
Sure. Yeah. You said then that you've now left the Yoshinkan and you've formed your own association of the Shudokan. When did that happen and why?
Okay. So in 2007, 2008, there was an upheaval in the Yoshinkan world. I don't know if you want me to mention names.
Go for it.
And okay, all right. Shioda Yasuhisa decided to take over. He had the power
of some of the board. Son. Yeah.
Yep. He had the part of the board behind him, board of directors, and then he proceeded to push Chida Sensei and Inoue Sensei out, and they were my teachers.
Sure.
So when they left, I stayed in the organization, and to this day, to my undying regret, I didn't do two things. One, I didn't start a petition against him taking over. Might have not done anything, but I should have. And two, I should have left straight away. I should have followed my teacher straight away. So after 2 years, I stayed in there. After 2 years, I decided it's not for me. That man didn't have any of my respect whatsoever. He was not my teacher. So I left and I went under Inoue Sensei. And I think 2-3 years ago, Inoue Sensei passed away.
Sure.
And I was left in a quandary. What do I do? And the only way I could figure out to keep the legacy of my uncle and keep the legacy of Inoue Sensei alive was to go on my own.
Okay.
No disrespect to any of the other teachers out there. I could have joined other teachers, gone under other teachers, but I think to keep the legacy of those two men alive, my two main teachers, best I did my own thing.
Why did it take 2 years then from Shioda Sensei and Inoue Sensei leaving to you kind of going, oh no, I'm out?
That's a really good question. Look, I've had relationship breakups easier than leaving the Yoshinkan.
Yeah.
I kid you not. I kid you not. That was one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. And if you know, the people around me will attest to that. Why it took 2 years? Maybe I didn't have the balls.
Okay. That's
Maybe it was too emotional. It was really hard. It was really hard. And it's not something, to this day, I have my regrets about leaving the Yoshinkan. I do.
Really? What regrets would they be?
You know, it's like leaving your father's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there are regrets. And I made my bed, I'll lie in it. But, you know, I have so much respect for the Yoshinkan. I have so much respect for people like Mustard Sensei, Darren Friend Sensei, John Marshall Sensei, Jacques Paye Sensei, who, you know, we share the same feelings, but they stayed in there.
Yeah.
I respect that a lot. They pushed it and they stayed in there. I had to do what was right for me.
Definitely, yeah. And you've mentioned those great teachers, those great names, Paye Sensei, Rob Mustard Sensei, who obviously you're very friendly with, and you do seminars together. They're all still part of the Yoshinkan. Pardon?
I hate the prick.
Okay, well, you'll teach together, but that's the limit.
Yeah.
So obviously they're still in the Yoshinkan. You've moved to the Shudokan now, or established the Shudokan, which is your own organization. But how do you ensure that you're keeping the consistency and the quality as your organization gets bigger? Because now you've got dojos in UK, Poland, Australia, obviously, other places around the world, and keeping that consistency must be difficult, or it starts to get difficult. Yeah, as organizations get bigger, quality tends to sometimes go down and diminish just because it filters, yeah, and it trickles.
So how do you do it then?
Communication, I would say, is crucial. I don't know. That's why I don't run an organization, and I don't think I would want to run an organization just for that reason. For me, it's the bigger something gets, the more it's filtered.
Even, and you know, look, bigger is not always better for a start, right?
Sure.
And when I first started traveling and teaching in Europe a lot, I had a lot of requests of people wanting to come under me. I was still in the Yoshinkan. We were like a family within the Yoshinkan, the Shudokan was.
Yeah.
And I sought advice from someone I respect a lot, Obata Sensei.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I asked him how you keep the level in his organization. And he said to me, you have 3 or 5 year plans for everyone. You figure out where this instructor should be in 3 or 5 years, you work towards that. This instructor, 3 or 5 years, where do you want him? So you have to have a connection with everyone of a certain level.
Sure.
And you know, for me, it's quite easy because I do not have hundreds of students or thousands of students everywhere. I don't. In Poland, I've got 1 student, Pavel Feliciak.
Right. Okay.
He has his dojos. He has people under him. In the UK, I've got a couple of students, Sarah Cullen, Danny Feliciak, Tarashi Narita, Jack Sharp.
Yeah.
They have their students. So I don't concern myself with their students. I concern with where I want to see them in 3 or 5 years. The same in Malaysia and in Indonesia. So I'm not involved with trying to raise the level of everyone, just the level of my students. They in turn are responsible for their students.
And then it rolls, yeah. In the world then, there's a handful of teachers that I go to, or not even a handful, sorry, of teachers that I go to for strong functional Aikido. You're one of them, and Mustard Sensei is one of them. What are your thoughts on the functionality of Aikido today? Because it gets a lot of shit and it pisses me off because there's a lot of crap out there as well.
Oh, what do you mean by functionality?
In terms of well, this is a different question as well, isn't it? One, in terms of the most easy way of saying it, functionality in terms of self-defense, functionality in terms of dynamics and dynamicism. Is that a word?
Yep.
So yeah, those two are the ones that I would. Functionality means to me it's dynamic and it works in terms of a self-defense system. If you're purporting to teach a martial art and a self-defense system, or you're saying on your marketing we teach self-defense, you should be teaching self-defense. And this is my issue quite a lot with Aikido that I've seen. Not all, but a lot.
Okay, so Master Sensei and I are quite different in how you describe functionality. We're quite different. I mean, I think he's, what I think of him, what I think of his Aikido, so there's no issue there. Yeah. But in terms of how we teach and our objectives, it's quite different. So I guess that question is very, very open, very wide. Yeah, and put it this way, right? Do you teach knife defenses?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know a lot of people who teach knife defenses?
A few, yeah.
How many people been attacked by a knife?
Very few.
Very few. And yet we teach knife defenses.
Yeah.
I know people who teach defenses against machetes and axes, and that's fine. That's fine. It's part of the art. But how many of your people have been attacked? The people you've taught. How many of the people I've taught have actually been attacked? So sometimes I've then me. I've had 3 knives and a gun pulled on me over the years.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm here to talk about it. So it's a big question. A lot of people do Aikido because they want to do something physical.
Yeah.
They want the discipline. They want to be able to maybe hold themselves up, hold themselves high. They'll walk away from a fight before they'll lift their arm. Right? Then there's other people. Okay, I had to answer that question myself. So, and I'm the kind of person, if you bump into me, I'd say sorry and I'll walk away.
Sure.
So I put myself on the door of a club where I couldn't walk away. And I'm 57 kilos. I'm 155, 56 centimeters. I don't know what that is in inches or pounds, but it's not big.
6, something like that. Yeah.
And look at the color. Working in Australia wasn't easy. Working on the doors.
Sure.
You copped a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And for me, the Aikido worked, but not many people's perception of Aikido. Most people's perception of Aikido is twisting someone's wrist like this or doing a perfect throw. No. You know me. There's no bags in my dojo. There's no mitts. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And yet, I've dropped people with a palm strike to the face. Where's that power come from? Maybe anger. Maybe the use of the hips. Yeah. Maybe all of it put together.
Yeah.
I had an instructor here who did security as well, and I saw him. There was a fight. He came flying through a doorway, and he did an irimi ski and put the guy's body straight through the wall. And that guy was a big boy, but he launched himself. He put his whole body into it. Is that Aikido? You be the judge. Okay. Another time, same guy. He went to do a knee kazo on someone, grabbed the guy's hand, and he said afterwards, as soon as I grabbed his hand, he knew I couldn't do it. So he got it there, and then he headbutted the knee kazo and dropped the guy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's use of your body. And that's, but it's not just the technique and the dynamics. It's having the fortitude and the knowledge and the awareness to use it at the right time. I've pinned someone on the ground and waited 45 minutes for the coppers to come.
Yeah.
Okay. 45 minutes. Now I'm not going to pin that guy unless I know my back was secure, and I'm not going to kneel on someone's shoulder for 45 minutes unless I was sure of my surroundings.
Sure.
So it's picking that right time, the right place, and your awareness tells you that. You've been in the situation before, you know that. You know, you can have the best technique, but if you don't have the right common sense, the right awareness, put it into place at the right time, it's not good.
Can that be taught?
And then sometimes, at other times, sorry?
Can that be taught? The awareness, the situational,
Yes,
can the training teach you that?
I think the training helped me pick it up faster.
Okay.
I had a good person that showed me the ropes when I first started working.
Yeah.
But pretty soon, after I started working with him, I had a job offer somewhere else, and then I was on my own. Most of the time, I worked with other people. Most of the time, I was on my own. So you had to pick up really fast. And I think the Aikido helped me a lot. It helped me stand up and tell, can I swear?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It helped me stand up and look someone in the face twice my size and say, hey, fuck off. You're not getting in.
Yeah.
And the guy says, who's going to stop me? You? I go, yep. I didn't believe it. I didn't, you know, my balls were the size of, peas when I was saying that. But you know, you just stood up, you stood your ground. And I think the Aikido helped me do that. It also helped me talk to people. And 9 times out of 10, that talking and you know, just that empathy and blending with someone.
Yeah.
The right amount of respect, the right amount of harsh language, or you can be harsh but still be respectful. That got me out of a lot of trouble before it happened.